preparing your dinner party all day, and all you want to do now is finish it off with a little appetizer for when your guests get there. I've got the perfect one for you now. Really simple, quick to prepare. It's made up of a little bit of daikon, some smoked salmon, and some little cress. Very, very simple. We start off with a daikon. Now this guy here is basically a big white radish. We're in England, where we got this one. You'll find them in most supermarkets. Depends what part of the world you're in. If you're in Japan or somewhere else like that, you might get a much bigger one, maybe twice, 3 times the size. Lots of different varieties. It's basically just a white radish. So what I've got is a piece that I've just cut from the daikon. And now this is a little bit tricky. You want to take your time with this, a small, nice sharp office knife, and we're basically just running our knife the whole way around the outside. Now the first layer that we do is basically to peel it. But you keep going, and when you get back to the center, you're left with a peeled daikon. Now, same process again. We want to do it quite thin. So, really, really slowly, just put it in the base of your hand and work the knife all the way around the outside. Now you've got all the time in the world to do this. You just take your time, and you're looking for a little piece that's going to be about 8 centimeters by 8 centimeters. So when it's finished, it's going to look a little like that. Now there's a couple that I've prepared over here already. You can see perfect little 8 by 8 squares, and what we're going to do with them now is we're very simply going to place them on a plate, and I'm going to salt them. Now what the salt does is it draws out all that moisture. A radish is made up of a lot of water content, so we're just going to sprinkle a little bit of salt over the top. I'll flip it over and do exactly the same thing, just a little bit. It's not going to take long, this process, but what it's going to do is it's going to soften that radish up so that it's nice and pliable. You might find it a little bit difficult to go around the outside with the little knife going all the way around, so maybe you just find a slightly fatter one and you can cut cross sections of it. That'll work just as well. But like this, with the 8 by 8, you've got a nice symmetric square, which does make it look very pretty. You'll see in the end product. So I'm going to set those aside for about 10 minutes and just let them soften up. Now, as they're out there, we're going to move this on to the next stage. And I'm going to make a very simple little dressing. This is very typical Japanese dressing. So simple. A little bit of sugar to start off. On top of that, a little bit of rice wine vinegar. And in there next, I'm going to add my sesame oil. Now you might be used with sesame oil to see in a darker one. This one's actually quite light because it's just a regular one. But if you actually get the toasted sesame oil, that's where you're getting that dark colour from basically. So that's just made a lovely little dressing. We're going to set that aside for 1 second now, and we'll use that later on. Now the next ingredient, very interesting one, a little seaweed called kombu. Now it comes in little packages like this. If you want to go into your local Asian market, you'll find it very easily. What I've done with it is I've actually soaked it in cold water for about 10-12 minutes, and what happens is it just softens up. If you don't have much time on your hand, if you're in a real big rush, just pour a little bit of hot water over there. It'll take 30 seconds. So you see how pliable that is. We're going to work with that a little bit later on. Now to assemble these, the daikon has been over there for about 10 minutes. Now you can see, before it was slightly hard. Now you can play around with it. That's exactly the texture we're looking for. One thing that we have to do though that's very, very important is we're just going to rinse it. Because we put so much salt on it to make it pliable, it's become a little bit salty. So we just need to get rid of that. So just into some plain cold water. So you just rinse it in there. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to lay it onto a paper towel and pat it dry. So paper towel on the bench. Shake off any excess water. So just lay it flat and just pat it very gently dry, making sure that all that excess water is got rid of. So there we go. So now what we're going to do next is we're going to start assembling these. First thing that I'm going to do is my kombu has really softened up. Now I'm going to cut a couple of long strips. We're basically going to use these as a piece of string to tie them up. Now if you didn't have kombu, you could just as easily use a little chive, maybe the outside. If you peel some celery or a little piece of leek that you just blanched quickly. I'm going to do a couple of those. You can see that because we've soaked it nice and easy, we're going to be able to tie that. So now the next stage is assembling these lovely little parcels. First thing that I've got are some Sprites. I've really washed them very well to ensure that they're nice and clean. A generous little snippet of those, and we're going to pop them up into that top corner. Now this is a dainty little canapé, but it really is so pretty with the finished article. Really good quality smoked salmon, worth spending a little bit extra to get a good one. And we're just going to place that in around the sides. And now what we're going to do is very carefully make a little parcel out of it by folding them up like that, and using our convu from earlier on, we're just going to tie that around the outside very simply, ensuring that it all stays together. Now I have to say, that really is the prettiest little morsel you could ever see, and it's so fresh, really tasty, makes the absolute perfect appetizer.